Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you. Welcome to the Paris Procopa Show. It is Monday, December the 28th, and I hope everybody had a great Christmas, or I'm sorry, did I just say that? I said the C word. I hope everybody had a great holiday. Oh, no, there's holy in there. I hope everybody had a great winter day in December. Maybe that won't offend anyone. I hope I don't get banned from Facebook for daring to say the C word. All right, everybody. Thank you. Obviously, very merry belated Christmas to everybody. And I haven't been on for a couple days and took a little bit of a break. And here I am. It's been interesting because a lot's happened over the past couple days. And first of all, I'll get to comments. Do I not have any sound? Someone was saying I didn't have any sound. I don't know what happened. I hope I have sound. Can you hear me? Shannon, can you hear me? Ed, can you hear me? CB, can you hear me? Anyone? Bueller? I hope you guys can hear me. It looks like I'm all connected. And oh my gosh. Awesome. So people can hear me. I would love to go to the DC rally on January 6th. But it's kind of interesting. I'm kind of torn about this, and maybe this is very, what would you say? Hi, Keely. And Kathy is there. It's very telling that President Trump obviously is doing this on January 6th because it's an important day. That's the day they count the electoral votes and stuff like that. And I'll get to some of that, but it's going to be very interesting because January 5th is the runoff in Georgia. And there's a lot of people who might not be voting in the election who are probably going to the rally because they think Trump is more important than the Senate or something. I don't know. I hope I would urge them. There would be nothing worse than the Democrats having full power over everything, because then it's game over. But I think that, go there first thing in the morning and vote, and then drive to DC and go have fun on the 6th. Hopefully with the victory, with the Republicans holding on to the majority to at least create a barrier to some of the left-wing nut job thinking that's out there, the AOCs of the world and everything. They're going to be, we don't want them adding to the Supreme Court. We don't want them adding additional states just simply so they can get more senators so they can hold on to power. Those of you in Puerto Rico, the Democrats don't give a rat's ass about you. They don't care. All they care about is to be two reliable Democrat senators so they can control everything. That's all that is. So Amanda's thinking about going, and you're not going to take me? Fine. No, I wish I could get there, but I have other obligations, and who knows? I might decide last minute and hop on a plane and go. We shall see. Everything on hold to after January 5th from Trump. Yep. They're going to see what happens, and they're going to exercise all the opportunities out there. And remember, we also there's still several cases in front of the Supreme Court. Who knows what's going to happen? But there's one case in particular that's looking to prevent Wisconsin, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia's electoral votes from being counted until their legislatures are able to reconvene to certify and determine how they certify and that type of thing. And of course, like in cities like Philadelphia or states like Pennsylvania, the governor's refusing to allow the state legislature to go back into special session. They have two options. They can either go special sessions with a 2/3 supermajority in the legislature calling for it, which they don't control that much of the legislature, so they wouldn't do that, and the governor calling it back into session. So it's going to be Interesting to see that. Judging from what's happened before, I think the court's going to throw it out. Let's be realistic about all this. But yeah. So right now we've got to rely on the election on the 5th. Obviously, the concerns out there are the fact that is Trump's rally at the 6th going to pull Republican voters away from Georgia? I don't think so. I think they'll vote ahead of time. There's a lot of absentee ballots and stuff like that. And then there's the other thing, will the Republicans keep control of the Georgia Senate, but with all the cheating apparatus still in place? And when you've got, what's her name, Stacey Abrams bragging how they have over 1 million absentee ballots and stuff like that, and we don't know what's going to happen. We really don't know what's going to happen. So I'd rather have 2 mediocre Republicans to give the Republicans at least the majority, like I said before, to stop some of the BS, than have the Democrats in charge of everything. So think before you do anything. They may not be perfect, but they're dang better. So promising poll numbers. The polls are out there showing that, and I don't remember which one's which, but one poll showing basically everybody in a dead heat in the Loeffler race. Maybe she's a little bit behind the crackpot. And then on the Purdue race, it shows Purdue actually a little bit ahead of his crackpot. So yes, there are 2 Democrat crackpots running. And I'm not even going to justify their names. So the reason why I think those polls are promising is, remember how far off the polls were during the presidential election. I'd say on average of 5 to 6 points, they were under polling Republicans. So Republicans beat their polling numbers typically by about 5-6 points statewide, nationwide. So I'm hoping it still holds. I don't think they reinvented their methodology of polling ahead of time, unless, of course, they were deliberately trying to manipulate, which I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But yeah, I said but. So I'm going to check some of these. Yeah. This Sherry Lee is saying the 6th is just the beginning. It could be. It could be. Shannon saying, I think a big news bomb will be exposed on January 6th before they certify. I think so, too. There's a 270-page report out there. Look it up, 270-page report by Sidney Powell. It has some interesting stuff. I just started reading it tonight. That's a lot of legalese to go through and stuff like that. It's frightening out there. I'm kind of bouncing all over the place here tonight. Those of you know, obviously, President Trump said he wasn't going to sign the stimulus because he said $2,000 wasn't enough. And then he also, he said $600 wasn't enough. And it said the American people should each get $2,000. And then there's way too much garbage in there. So I'm going to share my screen for a second. This is President, because I couldn't understand why President Trump would do this. I was like, okay, what's going on? Why did he all of a sudden support this? It was really strange. And I did they hold his back up against the wall and stuff like that? And then he instituted a procedural thing in there. And here's his statement. So I'm just going to read it verbatim. Sorry, bear with me while I read a little bit. Statement from the president. He released this on the 27th, basically. As president of the United States, it is my responsibility. Or should I read it like he does? As president of the United States, it's my responsibility. Okay, I can't do good Trump. As it is my responsibility to protect the people of our country from the economic devastation and hardship that was caused by the China virus. China. I understand that many small businesses have been forced to close as a result of the harsh actions by Democrat-run states. Many people are back to work, but my job is not done until everyone is back to work. And remember, his unemployment numbers were very low at our peak. Fortunately, as a result of my work with Congress in passing the CARES Act earlier this year, we avoided another Great Depression. Under my leadership, Project Warp Speed has been tremendous success, but I'll go through some of that. As president, I have told Congress that I want far less wasteful spending and more money going to the American people in the form of $2,000 checks per adult and $600 per child. As president, I am demanding many rescissions under the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. The act provides that whenever the president determines that all or part of any budget authority will not be required to carry out the full objectives or scope of the programs for which it is provided, or that such budget authority should be rescinded for fiscal policy or other reasons, including determination of authorized projects or activities for which the budget authority has been provided. The president shall transmit to both houses of Congress a special message describing the amount to be reserved, the relevant accounts, the reasons for the rescission, and the economic effects of the rescission. I will sign the omnibus and COVID package with a strong message that makes clear to Congress that wasteful items need to be removed. It's almost like the line item veto, folks. I mean, this is, just think about that for a little bit. He's the first president. The presidents have had this power since the 70s, and not a single president, Republican or Democrat, has ever used it to curtail the spending. Not a single one. It's sad. Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and quite honestly, Trump, until this point, hasn't used it either. Maybe he didn't know it existed. Honestly, as into politics as I am, I didn't know that existed. So it's buried somewhere. So anyway, I will send back to Congress a red line version, item by item, accompanied by the formal rescission requests to Congress, insisting that those funds be removed from the bill. I am signing this bill to restore unemployment benefits, stop evictions, provide rental assistance, add money for the PPP, and return airline workers back to work, and for vaccine distribution and much more. On Monday, the House will vote to increase payments to $2,000. And then here's the thing I have an issue with, 230, Section 230. I actually disagree with the president on this. But anyway, Section 230, which unfairly benefits big tech at the expense of the American people, will be reviewed and either be terminated or substantially reformed. I disagree on the termination. Section 230 is basically what makes Twitter, Facebook, etc., platforms, does not make them publishers. So they're not accountable to the content. However, there is nothing in Section 230 which prevents them from being censors of the information. We need to add language in there that basically disallows them from censoring. But the Section 230 needs to stay in there. It just needs to be fixed. If you get rid of Section 230, what that does is that effectively makes Facebook or Twitter or the like, YouTube, whatever, makes them publishers, makes them accountable for what I publish, what you publish, what anyone else publishes on their platforms. You think they're censoring now? Wait until they're accountable for the content. Nobody is going to have a voice. Anyway, so the Congress agreed to focus strongly on the substantial voter fraud, which took place in a November 3rd election, and et cetera, et cetera. So voter fraud. So basically, the money's coming, and he's basically helping, basically saying all that. But I can understand what he's doing here. He basically is saying, hey, people need help. He's not going to stand in the way of getting their help. Which I guess I can handle it. But unfortunately, he also took a major risk doing that because there's a chance. Well, first of all, The $2,000 probably won't happen in the Senate, but we'll see. It might happen too. You never know, because of course they're going to try to keep the Senate, so the Republicans are probably going to support it. But we shall see. Oh, delayed in runoff, man. Don't shoot the messenger, just passing this along. Oh, that's an interesting thought. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Now you're giving me a squirrel moment. You're distracting me. Okay. Let's see who else is on here. David King is on. Hello, David King. How are you? And Missy Toth. And so this is interesting. So anyway, President Trump signed that behemoth of a bill, 5,000 pages of just filled with crap. And basically the people are hurting. He's acknowledging that. But $600 is not going to do crap. And they already agreed to the dollar amount. Do I think it's too much money they're spending? Probably. But they can't do nothing. But they need to do more than $600. But they need to get rid of the other crap, the bloat, the $10 million for gender studies in Pakistan. Are you kidding me? Okay. There's a male, there's a female. One has a penis, one has a vagina. And everything else can go in the other category if they want to have their own category. And leave it at that. Ooh. Patty says, greetings from Georgia. I hope you're having fun down there, and I hope you're keeping busy, making sure that we have a good election there. So anyway, so there's a lot of crap in there, to cut. I think there was a lot of money. People are complaining about money for like the entertainment industry or whatever, the theater industry. There's millions of people that actually, like, I don't agree giving any more money to the Kennedy Center. They're closed. They don't need any more money. But I do agree with trying to help some of the companies like that run movie theaters, like here in Milwaukee or Wisconsin, we have the Marcus Corporation. They employ thousands of people, and they're through no fault of their own. With I haven't been to a movie all year, but that's the type of stuff. There's some good things in there. There's the extension of the PPP, an extension of unemployment benefits. People are losing some unemployment benefits. No, it's not as extravagant as the $600 a week or anything like that. But I think there needs to be a burden where people are making a legitimate attempt to find work. Because there's a double-edged sword with that, because you're paying people so much of unemployment. When people finally do open up, they can't get employees because they're making more money on unemployment than they are on a basically like a $45,000, $50,000 job after all is said and done. So who's going to go back and work at a restaurant as a server and work for a lot less money than that, and then hopefully make tips, but there's nobody coming to the restaurant, so they're not going to make as much in tips. So there's all this stuff. So we'll see what happens with the stimulus. It may pass the Senate. It already passed the House, and the House already repealed or voted to override President Trump's veto of the defense spending bill. So we'll see what happens with that. So obviously Georgia, I mentioned that the polls are going, they're looking good. So I'm not taking anything for granted, and we don't know what effect the Trump rally in DC is going to have. The theater support is supposed to be for like movie theaters and stuff like that, but the like support for like the Kennedy Center, which is also a theater, it's a performing arts theater and stuff like that. If they aren't having performing arts, I don't know. Because the stimulus back in March or April, whatever, the CARES Act, when that was passed, they had this $50 million grant to the Kennedy Center, and then the Kennedy Center immediately laid people off after they got the grant or the from that. So I don't know. We shall see what ultimately happens, and go from there. Now on to the state of Nevada. Something not election related right now, but I want to talk about. There's a high school student, and I grabbed this from the Epoch Times. I know some people are going to say, "Oh my God, the Epoch Times!" Well, you know what? They've had a lot of very good information out there, and I'm gonna, until they prove themselves wrong, or they do something completely blatant, I think they're pretty reasonable source among other sources. I would not use them as my only source, but I think it's out there. But anyway, and this is a true story. Now pull up the case in a minute, but a high school student sues over leftist indoctrination in Nevada. A high school senior of mixed race is suing a taxpayer-funded charter school in Nevada over the coercive ideological indoctrination that is central to its critical race theory-based curriculum that forces students to associate aspects of their identity with oppression. This is crazy stuff. So check this out. Once again, it's called High School Student Sues Over Leftist Indoctrination in there. But you got, and I'm going to pull this up. So don't mind me looking down for a minute, but I've got some stuff highlighted. But William Clark brings a suit for injunctive relief and damages against defendants for repeatedly compelling his speech involving intimate matters of race, gender, sexuality, and religion. So, defendants compelled the plaintiff, William Clark, the school, to make professions about his racial, sexual, gender, and religious identities in verbal class exercises, and then graded. Written homework assignments were subject to scrutiny, interrogations, and derogatory labeling of the students, teachers, and school administrators. This is horrible. This is what it's trying to, you got to be guilty for how you were born, basically. But Gabrielle Clark, a Black woman, is William Clark's mother and only living parent or guardian. William's father is now deceased, as a white man and an attorney. Gabrielle Clark brings the suit on her own behalf and asserts her 14th Amendment substantive due process right to family integrity and autonomy, which defendants deliberately threatened, undermined in word and deed, directing her son in class to unlearn the basic Judeo-Christian principles she imparted to him, and then retaliated against her son with a failing grade and threats of non-graduation when he declined to participate. Parents possess a right and covenant to guide and direct the upbringing of their children, and courts have repeatedly honored and upheld this right. And then they list some cases in here. His graduation from high school has been threatened. Academic performance has already been unjustly harmed. He and his mother, Gabrielle Clark, whose hopes are fully vested in their son's well-being and prospects, seek emergency injunctive relief for a reasonable accommodation as ongoing harm done and threatened to be done by the defendants. The school is the defendant, and they're threatening him because he's not participating in this assignment. But I'm gonna read some stuff from here. This is sickening stuff. Defendant Catherine Bass is his teacher, and an employee at DPAC. That's the name of the acronym for the school. She teaches and grades compulsory sociology of change class. It's compulsory. It's required. It's a required class by the school. Sociology of change, in which William Clark was enrolled, and she required William Clark and his fellow students to reveal and make professions about their gender, sex, religious, and racial identities, subject to those professional or those professions to public interrogation, scrutiny, and derogatory labeling as part of the curriculum designed, promoted, and implemented by the school and its CEO and Superintendent Natasha Travers. Defendant Catherine Bass terminated class discussion when plaintiff William Clark and other students sought to engage critically with defendants, class material, and programming that assigned character attributes on the basis of sex, race, and gender. And then she penalized them for not completing the graded identity confession assignments. This is horrible. So they're basically forcing this crap down the kids' throats on these charter schools. Critical race theory, basically you ought to be guilty for existing. Pardon me, I got to grab I'm running out of power at my device. I don't want to disappear from you guys. But this is what's being taught in schools, and it's coming soon to a school near you. So those of you, especially Wisconsin, we have a crackpot of a superintendent of public schools out here. Make sure that your school is not teaching critical race theory. Look for the signals. If they're asked to talk about anything, okay, I identify as white. Okay. Oh, you're white. You've got privilege. Your upbringing is based in racism of the past. Okay, well, first of all, I'm not a racist. Second of all, my family moved here long after slavery was abolished in this country, long after the Civil War. 1930s and 40s was when my families came over. Most of my family came over, from Greece. So it's, and quite frankly, nobody has any control over how they're born. Crying out loud, I'm not going to feel guilty. I'm not proud or guilty. I just am. My parents are Greek. I happen to be of Greek descent. Can't change it. My skin color is more olive tone white. There's so many different colors of skin within the skin too. So it's ridiculous. But look at what's happening here. Before it was divided black and white, then black and white, then Hispanic. Hispanic basically bunched anything that's Latin American or South American or Mexican or anything. All that those are the Hispanic. They group everything in, and then they subdivide them. Now the Latinos, and then you got different races. Now you got the black, white, Indian, Asian, people of color. That's another term that's being used now. We're all color. And they keep subdividing us. And now it's not only color. Now it's on gender. How you identify as a gender base. If you're a guy who wants to wear a woman's dress, you identify as a woman. Now suddenly you have your own special class. And then if you're gay or you're straight or if you're heterosexual, which first of all is, how species procreate. At least mammals do. There's a male and a female required to procreate. Well, nowadays, all you need is a test tube, but that's a whole different story. But now they're subdividing us there. You notice what's happening? Subdividing. How do you think communism started? This is Marxism. This is Karl Marx's ideology and philosophy personified. This is exactly how Marxists take power. Just look at what's happened since, April, May. Donald Trump I mean, the polling may have been inaccurate, but all the polling was consistent in showing Donald Trump making significant improvements on in relations with Republicans and the Black community, and Republicans and the Hispanic communities, and the Asian communities, stuff like that. He was making huge strides. He was getting stuff done. He wasn't just promising. Donald Trump was delivering. Everything from the First Step Act to better economy, everything else, making people be able to sustain themselves without being a ward of the state and the government, and getting people out of prison for minor sentences, things like that, just giving people a chance to succeed at life. And to Democrats, what did they have to do? They immediately had to find a way to drive a wedge between the races, to basically start a race war. And the situation in Minneapolis with George Floyd, that was their opportunity, and they capitalized on it. You know, what you had is bad police procedures led to the death of somebody who was in police custody. One happened to be Black, one happened to be white. And so you've got a race war. And they immediately took over the protests and started. And this is, mind you, this is a protest that probably 90% of Americans would have joined in on. But then the protesters were taken over by the liberals and these liberal groups, Antifa and the Marxists, and out there and stuff like that, starting violence, people driving pallets of bricks into areas so people would have access to bricks so they could break windows and cause all that stuff. So they did all this. And they divide us some more. They need us divided. I argue this, that most people of regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, anything, most people just want to live their lives. They like people. You know, if you're a person of good character, we get along and stuff like that. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what sex you are. I don't care who you sleep with in the bedroom. You know, it really doesn't matter to me. Treat me with respect. I treat you with respect. That's the way it is. I even had conversations, like civil conversations, with one of the protesters during, I was at a Back the Blue event, and there were protesters. I had a great conversation with the guy. We sat and talked. We were talking for over an hour. I've talked about this on my show before. But they need us divided, because they know if we're united, if we're of mindset, they can't beat us. So if you're watching my show here tonight, if you share it with your friends, make sure you follow me on Twitter, and make sure you follow me on I'm on Parler, I'm on MeWe, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube. Follow me at Paris Prokopis. Pretty simple, except YouTube. I only have about 200 followers. I need 1,000. I just started doing the YouTube thing, fairly recently. So you need to get to 1,000 followers before you get your own, where you can use your personal name or whatever. But seriously, follow me on that. Make sure you share my stuff and get information out there. Share information with people. Don't be forceful. So now we got to get on to January 6th. The most important thing going on right now is certification of the election. And there's obviously the one way, one senator, one congressman could actually call the vote into question. Then they get a 2-hour break. They break out in their individual houses and argue. Then they come back and then they vote, and and whatever, it goes there. But there's also Mike Pence has suddenly become the most powerful man in the country. even more powerful than President Trump, because Mike Pence single-handedly also holds Donald Trump's future and the future of this country in his hands. I'm not necessarily condoning this, but it is one option. It's not the only option, but if we look at interesting. Certified results fund. Interesting, CB. That's interesting. I'll leave that up there. But Mike Pence, his powers, and there are interpretations of this. It's not just one site out in the far right somewhere. There's a lot of historical context to this, where the vice president, as president of the Senate, can literally say, because he has plenary power. It's specifically stated in the Constitution in Article 12. I mean, in the 12th Amendment. The president of the Senate, which is the vice president, counts the votes. He could literally say, I do not count, because there's dueling electors, because of the fact that there's multiple electors from these, I think it's 7 states, although only 5 are in contention in the Supreme Court right now. But it's 7 states: Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and I think there's a couple more. There's New Mexico. They've submitted two slates of electors, and I believe it's Nevada. So, at any rate, you can literally say, I'm not counting these until the legislatures in the states determine which batch to certify, then I'll count them. He could literally just not count them. He could refuse to count them. If he does that, then it's like 231 for Trump, 220 for Biden. Either one gets to 270 by January 20th. Guess what? The vote goes to Congress, congressional delegation in the House of Representatives. Each delegation gets 1 vote, which in theory, the Republicans control. And then on the Democrat side, each senator gets a vote. So logically, assuming that at least Purdue wins, actually, no, assuming that even if the Democrats win, Kamala wouldn't be vice president until the election is done on January 20th. So therefore, Pence would be the tie-breaking vote. So basically, Trump would win, more than likely. So that's a long shot. Mike Pence was not a Washington guy. He was a state governor, but he's also a party player. I'm not holding out faith that he's going to do that. I'm actually not sure if he should do that. I know what I want to happen. I want Trump to win, and I get that. But that's opening up a whole nother can of worms. Unless something extraordinary, like what CB is saying here, something extraordinary comes up between now and January 6th. I mean, there's all kinds of extraordinary stuff. Unfortunately, hasn't landed in court because we have a lot of judges that are afraid to make a decision that's difficult, or B, they're hiding everything. They're partisans, and unfortunate that they're that. We don't know. All 3 of Donald Trump's picks voted not to hear the Texas case. So I don't know. I really don't know what's to be expected from there. So nothing's landed in court, but there needs to be something. Is there something in this 270-page document that Sidney Powell made public? That's brilliant. This SCOTUS case. I mean, but if Pence does this, there's going to be a revolt. If Pence doesn't do this, there's going to be a revolt. We're in a situation where dangerous times. In a revolt, who do you trust to maintain control? I trust Pence more than I trust Trump more than I do Joe Biden to keep things under control. But a recent poll showing 96% of the Democrats believe Biden won fair and square. I don't buy that number. I still think it's high. Don't get me wrong. I'd probably say it's more like 80%. And then you got, all over the country. And the reason why Pence is put in this position, you've got governors in this country who are acting like they're monarchs. State bureaucrats acting like they're monarchs as well. Look at here in Wisconsin, we got the election commission. They're appointed, they're not even elected. And they're acting like they have all the power. And of course, Governor Evers is useless. You got the Michigan Attorney General, who's literally been considering criminal prosecution of lawmakers who wanted to investigate the voter fraud. Did I say the F word? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say the F word. Please, Facebook, don't remove me for saying the word fraud. Shh. Don't. I won't say it. But think about this. The Michigan Attorney General is willing to throw lawmakers in jail because they are interested in investigating the voter fraud. They're not talking about overturning anything. They just want to investigate. That's all we're asking for. I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat. I'm just saying, there's enough accusations out there, and there's a lot that maybe we should look into it. And if it doesn't change the outcome of the election, so be it. Biden won. I'll accept it. So be it. Congratulations, Mr. President. It's over. Well, it'd actually be Madam President, because we know he won't be president long because he's old and has Alzheimer's and who knows. And they don't want him anyway. But basically, can you say this? You're getting put in jail because you want to investigate people who are possibly cheating in elections, the very foundation of our country. This is so 1984. George Orwell was a brilliant psychic. He saw the future. It's fascinating. Really fascinating. So there's that. And then finally, it's like living in the Twilight Zone. That's right, Sophia. So another fellow Greek. We got to surround the Greeks. Oh, you want to look at Fox News for the most part? I don't look at Fox News anymore, Kaylee. You know what's fascinating? No other conservatives are watching them as well either. You got to check out newsmax.com and also OANN, One America News Network. Both of them are much better. Not because they're telling me what I want to hear, but they're looking at both sides of the story. They're trying to be, they're conservative outlets, but they're trying to be consistent. What's this? Hey, CB, was this quote you just put up here? Is this from Pennsylvania? I don't know. I don't know what this is from. Oh, this must be Pennsylvania. Interesting. So I'll have to look into that some more. But anyway, you look at Wisconsin. Okay, I'm going to come back to Wisconsin. So what is about a week and a half ago or so? Pardon me, it's dry in here. This is not wine. It's cran apple juice. I borrowed some from my son. So what the heck? We had these hearings. The state assembly and state senate, the state all sat through these hearings. We had a bunch of people testifying. Some pretty earth-shattering testimony too. All this on the heels of some Supreme Court testimony the day before, and of course, Brian Hagedorn. With all due respect, Brian Hagedorn screwed us in a highly inconsistent ruling. Consistent with him, he's always ruling with the liberals, it seems, but an inconsistent ruling with his own rulings in the past. But nonetheless, I'm digressing. But we had these hearings. Our state legislators heard this stuff, listening. And I'm sure people going into the legislature watched some of this on, a lot of us saw it on Wisconsin Eye and everything else. We were doing this, and I caught some of the testimony. Talk about what they witnessed on election night, after the election, in the recount, pre-election, with the people in the park thing. The election commission doing everything in their power to remove probably the only barrier to the Democrat winning in this state, which would be another competitive liberal ticket on the presidential ballot, by removing the Green Party, by removing Kanye West because they were 17 seconds late. Ridiculous crap like that, stacking the deck. Back in February, refusing to do their job by removing 200,000 people who either died or moved or no longer were eligible to vote from the voter rolls. I wonder how many of those 200,000 people who weren't eligible to vote actually voted. And then the legislature hears all this stuff. It's now been, 2 weeks? Almost 2 weeks? Not a peep. Robin Vos hasn't said a goddamn thing. Nor have any of the other leaders. I think Chris Kappinga in the state Senate has said a couple things, to his credit. Love to hear what Julian Bradley thinks. He's not in the Senate yet, so he's not accountable at this point. So many people in the North, the hardline conservatives, where are they? Not a word. Conservative senators, conservative assemblymen. Oh, San Filippo also has been saying some things, but hearing nothing. What legislation is starting to be drafted or proposed? I know they're not in session, but where's some of these people leading? Where's Robin Vos? Like you said, Jay. Where's his leadership? We're not in session right now. I'm going to call a special session because we got to discuss this. This is a travesty, what we saw. Whether or not it changes the outcome, Robin Vos is going to use the whole, well, it's not going to change the outcome. We've got to prevent it from happening ever again. And Robin Vos, whoa, I moved my camera. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Sorry about that. Yep. So Murphy called. Robin Vos blocked it. The only thing, I got to give credit where credit is due, and this is probably more Andrew Hitt, the leader of the Republican Party of Wisconsin. Wisconsin did submit electors from both sides. So the Republicans did also submit a band of electors, a group of electors. So I'll give credit where credit is due. But I guarantee that was against Robin Vos. If I didn't know any better, even though he hasn't publicly stated so. If I didn't know any better, I think Robin doesn't want Trump to win this. I think Robin might be a never Trumper. I never heard him openly out there fighting hard to make sure President Trump wins the state. Making sure the leader of his party in the country wins re-election. He didn't bust his ass for that. He barely busted his butt to save a couple of assembly seats in this area. And, we're taking some crap for being critical. We had an opportunity to get a veto-proof margin, and that was squandered. Retake an assembly seat that was lost. The Republican Assembly Campaign Committee screwed that up. But anyway, I'm getting on a tangent. But anyway, where are they? What good why did we have these hearings? Robin commented on one of my threads, "Stop spreading conspiracy theories, Paris. We're doing things." And I said, "We're not doing things." I said, "I want action, not lip service." And I told him I'd be the first one out there championing Robin Vos. I'd say Robin Vos for governor, everything, because we know he wants to run for governor. But I'd be totally in his camp if he showed some action. Those hearings were nothing but lip service. Well, I'm getting a lot of pressure to do it, so we better do it so we look good. And you don't do shit about it. Well, Tony Evers won't sign it. I don't care. Let him veto it. Let him explain why he doesn't want to have clean elections. And who knows? Every once in a while, maybe a Democrat will occasionally have a conscience and maybe do the right thing. I'm not saying make it easier for Republicans to win or anything like that. I don't care about that. I'm saying we want elections that are true. If the state of Wisconsin wants a bunch of Democrats, well, that's the state's choice. But they need to win legitimately. Know him as a person. He's a nice guy, but he's quite ineffective as a leader now. The only thing he's been effective at is maintaining the legislative majority or maintaining the assembly majority. I'll give him credit for that. But what good is the majority if we don't do anything with it? What good are these hearings if we do nothing with it? Now, granted, it's only been 2 weeks and it's been this, but I'm predicting the future here. They're not going to do a damn thing. And I say to you, Robin Vos, I say to you, it's escaping me, whoever's going to be the leader of the Senate now that Fitzgerald is leaving, prove me wrong. I would gladly eat crow. Give me a little garlic, a little salt and pepper. I'm sure crow tastes like chicken. I'll eat it. But right now, I'm telling you, I don't have confidence that the state legislature, which has a Republican majority, will do anything about it. And then, let's say a miracle happens and the Supreme Court votes 6-3. I'm talking the United States Supreme Court, SCOTUS. If they vote 6-3 to say Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, whatever, you all have to decide which legislatures or which electors to pick, because the legislature or the governors in each of those states or the Democrat governors in the Democrat states changed how votes were to be counted without the consent of the legislature, which the United States Constitution quite clearly states in black and parchment that the legislatures determine how electors are going to be selected. So if something happens to that, then what are you going to do, Robin Vos, when you're left with the choice? Are you going to pick Joe Biden's electors or are you going to pick the Republican electors? You know damn well there was cheating. You know damn well there was a lot of skirting of the rules or stacking of the deck. There were over 200,000 indefinitely confined, or people who said they were indefinitely confined because of COVID. What happened? It was like a 6-1 or 5-2 decision. Hooray, Brian Hagedorn had a surprising vote with the conservatives that basically said coronavirus or any virus is not an excuse to be indefinitely confined. And everybody knows if you declare that you're indefinitely confined, you don't have to provide an ID. What they did say, even though you have to prove indefinitely confined, or indefinitely confined cannot be because of a virus, at the same time, they said, we're not going to throw out all the votes. They have to be taken on a case-by-case basis. The Supreme Court ruled, what, 3 weeks ago? 2.5, 3 weeks ago? How many of those indefinitely confined votes, how many of those 200,000 have been counted and thrown out? How many have been verified and tossed out? Hello, I'm speaking to you, Republican legislature. How many of those 200,000 votes were thrown out? Like Jake Jacob says, chicken sheds. Exactly. Yes, they are in it for themselves. Unfortunately, if we control the power, I mean, not unfortunately, if we control the power, they do tend to come along, but we need to show them who's in charge. And that's a show for another day where I'm going to be talking about the future of the Republican Party, or talking about the destruction of the Republican Party, because regardless of the outcome, Donald Trump did not lose that election on the 3rd. Even if he lost the presidency legitimately, he did not lose that election. Why? Because he got what, just around 75 million votes. He increased his voter base by 12 million, something like that, 12, 13 million. He did not lose. There was a reinforcement of his accomplishments, his way of governing, and dare I say his style, all around the country. Republicans were supposed to lose their asses in the House of Representatives. We gained seats. We almost got the majority. That wasn't because people loved Republicans. That was because Donald Trump did well in their area, well enough that it brought up the Republicans along with it. Republicans are at least 50-50 and within a stone's throw away of keeping the majority. Once again, in a year they were all supposed to lose. That is because of Trump. Lindsey Graham, Susan Collins, the guy from Montana, the guy from Michigan who should have won. I guarantee we won that seat. John James, phenomenal candidate. If Trump pulls this off, John James, he needs to get in Trump's cabinet. He's a phenomenal candidate. He's got to run for governor against that crackpot tyrant that they have out in Michigan. So, yeah, but anyway, Trumpism is alive and well. And the Republicans, the rank and file establishment leadership, they've got to quickly decide what they want the party to look like. There was a battle like this back in, I've read about this. I wasn't born then, but I guess in like 1966, 67. Those of you who are a little more chronologically gifted than myself. I don't know if you remember obviously there was the Goldwater Revolution, and there was a big pull away by the quote unquote rhinos, pulling away from Goldwater, and Richard Nixon was a big proponent of this, and he helped. And then the Republicans did very well in 1966 in the House and the Senate. And then obviously in 1968, he won the presidency. And then in 1972, he won a landslide. I think he only lost 1 or 2 states. We're at that point again. We're at that crossroads. So are we going to let the Jeff Flakes, the Lincoln, what are they called? The Lincoln Project morons, the Charlie Sykes of the world. Are we going to let them retake power in our party? This is our party. We own it. And if not, each and every one of these establishment types, and we're watching, and I'm talking about you guys in Wisconsin, each and every one of you will have a primary. I don't care if you fight and you lose. But if you don't fight at all, forget it. I'd rather go down fighting, doing the right thing. If I were in the legislature, I would lose my seat to do the right thing. And the right thing right now is not let them win because they did cheat. And those of you who are saying there's no evidence, nothing's been proven in a court of law. Well, tell me a judge that's actually allowed it to come in and has seen the evidence. And yes, there is evidence of cheating. Everything from statistics and statistical analysis is admissible in court, and so are affidavits from Maureen. You're saying no way. Why no way? I don't know. Yeah, Mitt Romney, he thinks he's going to be the head. Oh, no, Mitt Romney, I hope he runs for president. I want to see him get his ass kicked a third time. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, come on. He lost to John McCain, for crying out loud, in the primary. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt in 2012. And I still kind of stand by this. If he had fought harder and if he had actually won, he might not have been a bad president. But the thing is, his ego got the best of him. He couldn't handle the fact that this politician, well, non-politician from out of nowhere, never running for office a day in his life, comes in and wins the highest office in the land. And yet Mitt Romney couldn't do it as a professional. He was a governor, and now he's a senator, and now he's bitter. I think we are at that reset point. And who knows? And if Biden does pull this off and they start doing what they're going to do with the stacking of the court and adding Puerto Rico and the DC, I think there's not much left to do anything. You're going to see secession of states, and rightfully so. I hope it doesn't come to that. People got to realize that, there's a lot of people on my side too. Civil war, we're going to fight. Civil war. People are going to die. People are going to die if this nation gets into a civil war. We're in a cold civil war right now. There's an ideological battle for the state, for the country. But, think long and hard about that. There are other ways to win, but we'll see. It may come to that. I don't know. Obviously there's this, the question about what happened in Nashville, what all that was about. There's video saying there was a missile that shot in there. There is a legitimate question about that when they're looking at the wreckage and everything. There's no crater. Should there be a crater there from a bomb that was supposedly that powerful? You know, do I think it's some loner who blew himself up? I don't know. It's kind of interesting how it always happens to be somebody who is a loner. Um, Maybe there's a psychological profile for that. I don't know, but there's sure that there's theories out there that AT&T was supposed to be involved with. They had some Dominion machines that are going to be doing forensic analysis on, and that's what they had to destroy. I don't know. Maybe another theory that it was an NSA office, and the NSA and the CIA are actually at war with each other. Yeah. Well, people are dying already because we can't. People are dying of depression and stuff like that, or getting sick because they're not able to go out. The return of the Republic of Texas. That will. I think the one state that'll secede before Texas does will probably be one like Alabama or even South Dakota. I could see Kristi Noem. She's a feisty one. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing about this whole thing is we've seen the tactics that the Democrats were willing to employ in order to try to get the presidency. They had to destroy the one thing that made President Trump indestructible, and that was the economy. They had to destroy that. They don't care how many people they hurt, how many people they killed doing that. And who knows? Maybe they were colluding with the Chinese. Maybe they were the people that helped the Chinese release the virus. I don't know. Either deliberate or by accident. The Chinese were the ones that let this loose on our world. There's no way that a virus behaves like this out of nowhere like that. Who knows? It's got to be man-made. It's got to be like germ warfare that they lost control of, or they did it deliberately because Trump was getting them. Maybe? I don't know. I'm getting exactly and maybe. Maybe, baby. Hey, Christine, how's your run for school board going? Did you get your signatures? And that's what we got to do. Speaking of that, we need people to start running for the city offices, for aldermen, for school board, all this stuff. That's how they're winning. They're indoctrinating generations of people. They're controlling the means of education and spreading information. And we let them do that over the years. They've been patient. Remember, progressivism basically started, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt, but it really took hold with Woodrow Wilson. So we need more people to do it. It might take us some time, but get out there, start getting involved. Do that. Well, I've been on long enough. I'm going to get off and let me rephrase that. I'm going to end it for the night. Thank you guys for chiming in. Sorry I didn't get to all your comments, but there's just so much going on. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we're living in 1984. But people, conservatives are having an impact. Look what happened to Fox News since election night. You want to see something staggering? Tucker Carlson, one of the 2 or 3 really good people on Fox News. His ratings are lower than Rachel Maddow now. This is the top dog, and now he's down below Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow is beating Tucker Carlson in the ratings. That's because of you and I not watching Fox. So just remember that we can have an impact when we're steadfast, and we have to make an impact. Because you know what? There's a chance Trump can pull this off, but there's also a struggling likelihood that we're going to have President Biden on January 20th. Short of all this coming together, all of a sudden it just all comes together. And we need to be able to fight and beat back this wave. But it starts on January 5th with all you folks in Georgia. Please get out and vote. It's going to be hard. I know they're especially Loeffler. She's not the greatest candidate, but she's definitely better than the crackpot she's running against. You know, at some point, I'd rather have a rhino who occasionally votes right than an ultra left-wing nut job who will vote far left. And this guy's like Jeremiah Wright crazy. So just get out there and vote. I know we want to sock it to Mitch McConnell for, Mitch McConnell is playing politics. And you know what? And that's what concerns me about the Republican Party. What do they really stand for? President Trump, he stands for the people. He proved that if you're determined, you get stuff done. You negotiate, you do everything you need to do. McConnell was supporting Trump because McConnell wanted conservative judges, and to McConnell's credit, he got them through. He's done some parliamentarian things since, before Trump is in office too, with not seating a justice when Scalia died, things like that. So he occasionally shows some stuff, and he did get the tax cuts passed. He helped. Trump couldn't have done it alone. So I get that. But when it's determined, at least in his mind, that Trump is done, January 20th, Trump is over, he's starting to show his true colors. And the Republican Party had better continue this let's get shit done mentality. Or all the key people are going to be primaried. And rightfully so. Or even worse, there will be a third party movement that the country hasn't seen since the 1800s. And it'll have an impact on the election. This is a coalition that the Republican Party does not want to lose. Not when you have, this is probably a substantial portion. Granted, Trump had 90% support in the Republican Party for re-election. But I'd still say he'd have a good 60, 70% that could go the other way. So who knows? I'm being very serious, melancholy right now, but I don't know where anything's going to go. I'm torn. I'm getting impatient. I keep saying that, I see Giuliani on television. Oh, we're about to do this. Just do it already. Then we got the Insurrection Act, stuff like that. Should Trump issue invoke the Insurrection Act? Maybe. But if he doesn't do it and Biden gets in, will Biden invoke it? And suddenly people like me are rounded up because I need to attend a Truth and Reconciliation trial and be re-educated. Don't put it past them. Some prominent Democrats are calling for this. Do you dare want them in power? But at this point, what have we got to lose? And I'll support the Insurrection Act if Trump uses that to call for a revote in those 6, 7 states. That's it. And if he still loses, and it's done in a way where the military monitors that everybody has to go to the polls and all that stuff, and the military monitors the counting and all that stuff. And if at that point Biden still wins, I'll accept it. But I won't support the Insurrection Act just so Trump can keep power. There has to be a reason for it. That's just my thought. Other people have different thoughts, but just to stay in power is not enough reason. To stay in power because you believe the cheating was. If he does that and appoints a special counsel and they investigate the voter fraud, and there's all this evidence, all these affidavits and everything else, it is proven beyond a reasonable doubt that there was voter fraud, and they can quantify it, and it gets out to the people, the American people will accept it as well. Because my gut, everything tells me that Donald Trump won, not because I'm a Trump supporter. I voted for Mitt Romney in 2012. I didn't say Obama stole the election. Obama won, especially back in 2008. And I'm not going to be convinced. Oh, here I go in a tirade again. I'm not going to be convinced that Joe Biden got more votes than Barack Obama in 2008. Let's be honest. Whether you like the guy or not, he was a superstar and could deliver an amazing speech that could bring tears to people's eyes, that'll send a shiver up your leg. I knew it was complete bullshit, but I also heard the same speech in 2004. And this is before I knew anything about Barack Obama, but I always watched the Democrat convention and I watched the Republican convention. I always do that, go back and forth. And I watched him give that oratory there. The whole rest of the Democrat convention was, we hate George W. Bush. Except for Obama's speech. And all I said to a friend of mine, it's like, he sounds a lot like a Republican. His speech was very, very eloquent, very well given, very passionate. And then I started reading up on him, researching him and stuff like that. I was like, oh my God. Barack Obama is a manufactured candidate. He's never had opposition. He always got people taken off the ballot, and he basically always ran unopposed, even when he ran for state office. I was like, they're grooming him to be president. So by the time 2008 rolled around, I knew he was a nobody, an empty suit. Yet people think of him as like John F. Kennedy or something like that. It's like, no, I don't think so. But anyway, yeah, there's no way in hell that Joe Biden or pompous Kamala Harris got more votes than Barack Obama. I mean, Barack Obama may be a left-wing, true believer Marxist, but I'll give credit where credit is due. He ran a brilliant campaign in 2008, and he was very charismatic. He's a great speaker. He won. Yeah, there might have been some cheating back then too, but not enough. He won. No way did Joe Biden get more votes. No way. It's not possible. And don't say, well, people hated Trump. You know how badly people hated George W. Bush in 2004? He was the second coming of Satan. And George W. Bush still coasted to re-election. So there's absolutely no question about it. Trump won. And I argue he actually probably won the popular vote as well. Not that it matters. But Trump won in Wisconsin. We saw what happened on the ground. He won, leading by over 100,000 votes in the state of Wisconsin at 2 a.m. To say nothing about the over 400,000 votes in Michigan. No, I mean in Pennsylvania, and he was way ahead in Michigan, and it just none of this makes sense. None of it. So, but that's where all this comes through. But quite frankly, we need to see whatever the Kraken is. We need to do it, and I don't know if it's in that 270-page report that was released, but from what I started reading, there's some pretty intense stuff there. Guys, when you have a handful of major cities in the entire country stop counting where Trump was ahead by significant margins, Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Atlanta, and then suddenly it all changes a couple hours later when they had stopped counting. I could see that in one state, but to see it in what was that, 5, 6, 7 states? Nuh-uh. I call foul. Arizona, I don't know. I think Arizona Biden may have actually eked out a legitimate win there. They're getting so many people a year moving to Arizona from California, and they're bringing their ideology with them. Hopefully they turn around. Now Arizona has 2 Democrat senators. But part of that is because Martha McSally was absolutely horrendous. She was a horrible candidate the last time. And yet the moron governor appointed her when McCain's seat when McCain came up, when he died? I don't know, but she was horrible. So she loses, and then she gets appointed. He should have appointed someone else. But yeah, there's none of that. And that's not being a crackpot. That's not being tinfoil hat, anything like that as far as saying. You look at the pulse. You go around the country. When you see 30,000 people crowding into an area, even though there's a threat of a pandemic, just so they can see President Trump give the same speech he's been giving all over the country that they've probably heard before, watching it on YouTube or going to multiple Trump rallies. I went to 2 of them, and I didn't get sick at either one. But went to 2 of them. The energy was just contagious. Bad choice of words. The energy was electric. It was just amazing. You don't want to. Somebody like that doesn't lose an election. Yeah, some people made an argument. Well, Bernie Sanders had all these crowds too, and he lost. Well, hindsight's 2020. Back in 2016, Bernie Sanders did not lose to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton took it from him, and the establishment took it from him. Not that I'm supporting Bernie Sanders, but it's quite obvious they cheated. So they also have a track record of cheating in elections to get what they want. The problem was in 2016, they didn't expect Trump to do as well as he did. So whatever stuff they had in place, they're saying, well, why didn't Trump contest the election then and say there was cheating? He did say there was. He even warned us about it ahead of time. So we open your eyes, people. And I'm not talking about you in the audience, but people who were saying, oh, just deal with it. Trump lost. Trump lost. He didn't. But regardless, we got to do something about this now. We won't get another chance. If we lose now, everything forever changes. Freedom of speech will be greatly curtailed. Right to bear arms will be greatly curtailed. Granted, none of these can be changed by constitutional amendment, but they can sure make it a living hell for us. You get free speech, but you can't say that because it's offensive. I mean, look what happens now if you dare say, if somebody says the phrase "all lives matter," if they get doxxed, they get threatened, or someone says, "Hey, somebody posted that on Facebook, you should fire this employee." They get fired from their jobs, all that stuff, just because they say something. I never once say that Antifa and BLM and all that should have their free speech taken away. They should be allowed to say what they say. I think if more people hear what they're saying, chances are people won't support them. They'll become irrelevant, just like the KKK did and all that for decades. But if you prevent people from hearing stuff that you don't agree with, then that type of hate has a chance to flourish. So at any rate, we have a chance here. And I'll support President Trump until he concedes, he officially loses anything, and then I'll do that. But I also will have a right not to support Joe Biden because I don't think he legitimately won. Maybe he won according to the processes that the Democrats put in place in several key states. You know, and it's only those states. It's kind of interesting how they didn't find any several 100,000 extra ballots for Joe Biden in Los Angeles or Honolulu or New York. Only in the 5 states that mattered: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, well, quite frankly, Minnesota and Virginia. Yep, you're right, Dawn. Cheating does not equal winning. The fact that we let them get away with it, it will, if we let them get away with it. That's why you got to push your legislature hard, especially here in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Push your legislators hard. There's still a lot of stuff that's going to happen. Who knows? So, well, guys, I really got to go. I am out of here. Have an awesome night. Thank you for listening. Once again, follow me on Tinder. Follow me on Twitter at Paris Procopus. And also, please like and subscribe over at YouTube as well. That helps the algorithm and stuff like that. I'm trying to get my readership out there. And I'm also on Parler and also on there. And I also, at Paris Procopus, or go to parisprocopus.com. See, Dawn, I just made you say, oh my God. And I didn't even have to touch you. Isn't that wonderful? I'm talented. It's been a long day. Yeah, make sure you go on there. And I also have a donate link here. If you ever want to contribute to my show, I would love it. It also helps me, because there are certain fees with subscriptions, stuff like that, in order to be able to do these live broadcasts. It's always a help. At any rate, have an awesome night. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I love it when you guys chime in, and I love being challenged as well. Sorry I didn't get to everything, but hey, I've been on for an hour and a half. So it would make Hilario De Leon proud. Talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Bye.